Concerning the multidimensional manifestations of religions, we can say that there is broad or general way in which religion is a multidisciplinary or multidimensional phenomenon. You remember I told you that the culture has 6 pillars. One of them is religion. It's religion. The other one is politics, economics, aesthetics, kinship. It has also ethics. Those are pillars of culture, and religion permeates all those pillars of culture, such that it is very hard to tell the distinction between culture and religion. Meaning, religion is a multi-dimensional phenomenon. For indeed, one's acceptance of and possession to one's a supernatural being, to one's an ultimate reality and its manifestations involve a multidimensional process that includes, beyond the pillars of culture, it includes the attitudes, the beliefs, the emotions, the experiences, the rituals, and community and belonging. My argument in this study is that a multidimensional approach to religion is revised and redeveloped by taking into account the varieties and specificities of various religions can help us better understand the various worlds, enable us to make cross-cultural comparisons about the status of religions, and finally to equip us to make better predictions about the future of religions. In other words, religion is not just a matter of belief. Religion is concerned about all pillars of culture. I say in politics, aesthetics, economics, ethics, and kinship. In short, religion in its multi-dimensional approach will dialogue with environment, with health, with education, with trade, with business, with anthropology, with sociology, and all departments of life. Only then will it have relevance to our contemporary society. When religion pretends to be just heavenly, it has nothing earthly concern. That is the beginning of failure. It can't go far because it has missed the point, the broad spectrum, the broad understanding, the broad makeup of it. It's made as a broader conception. Other researchers have found different dimensions ranging generally. Other researchers have found different dimensions of religion, ranging generally from 4 to 12 components. What most measures of religiosity find is that there is at least some distinction between religious doctrine, religious practice, and spirituality. For example, one can accept the truthfulness of the Bible or belief dimension, but never attend a church or even belong to an organized religion so as to practice. So that is practice dimension. Another example is an individual who does not hold orthodox Christian doctrines or belief dimension, but does attend a charismatic worship service, that is practice dimension, in order to develop her sense of oneness with the divine, that is spirituality dimension. An individual could disavow all doctrines associated with organized religion, that is belief dimension, and not affiliate with an organized religion or attend religious services, that is practice dimension. And at the same time, be strongly committed to a higher power, and feel that the connection with that higher power is ultimately relevant. That is spirituality dimension. These are explanatory examples of the broadest dimensions of religiosity, and that they may not be reflected in specific religiosity measures. Now, most dimensions of religiosity are correlated, meaning people who often attend church services or mosques, that is what we call practice dimension, are also likely to score highly on the belief and spirituality dimensions. But individuals do not have to score high on all dimensions or low on all dimensions. Their scores can vary by dimension. Now, sociologists have differed over the exact number of components of religiosity. Charles Grock's five-dimensional approach was among the first of its kind in the field of sociology of religion. Other sociologists adapted Grock's list to include additional components. Now, let us look briefly at Dimensional Religiosity Measure. Marvin Verbit, who served as the first president of the Association for the Social Scientific Study of Jewry, 1971 to 1973, which was a cross-disciplinary organization of individuals whose research concerns the Jewish people throughout the world, noted the six components of religiosity as: 1. Ritual. Of course, we know what ritual is all about, derived from the Latin ritualis, that which pertains to rite. Okay. The second one is doctrine. Okay, from the Latin doctrina, a codification of beliefs or body of teachings or instructions, taught principles or possessions as the essence of teachings in a given branch of knowledge or belief system. And of course, you know, doctrines are very essential for our faiths, very, very essential. The third one is emotion. The third one that was identified by this scholar Marvin Verbit as the dimensional religiosity measure. You measure religion by all these. The third one is emotion. And emotion is a subjective conscious experience characterized primarily by psychophysiological expressions, biological reactions, and mental states. Of course, emotion is often associated and considered reciprocally influential with mood, temperament, personality, disposition, and motivation. Now, the fourth one is knowledge. Now, in philosophy, the study of knowledge is called epistemology. The philosopher Plato famously defined knowledge as justified true belief, though well-justified true belief is more complete as it accounts for the greater problems. However, several definitions of knowledge and theories to explain it exist. So we cannot just exhaust matters to do with knowledge. It's a very broad term. And the fifth one that this scholar identified is ethics. The term comes from the Greek word ethikos, from ethos, which means custom, habit. Ethics, sometimes known as moral philosophy, is a branch of philosophy that involves systematizing, defending, and recommending concepts of right and wrong conduct, often addressing disputes of moral diversity. Ethics seeks to resolve questions dealing with human morality, concepts such as good and evil, right and wrong, virtue and vice, justice and crime. The sixth Dimensional Religiosity Measure, as seen by Marvin Vambit, is community. It's a sixth dimensional measure, is community. And in human communities, intent, belief, resources, preferences, needs, risks, and a number of other conditions may be present and common, affecting the identity of the participants and their degree of cohesiveness. Since the advent of the internet, the concept of community has raised geographical limitation, as people can now gather virtually in an online community as we are doing today and share common interests regardless of physical location. Prior to internet, virtual communities like social or academic organizations were far more limited by the constraints of the available communication and transportation technologies. According to the sociologist Marvin Vambit, community may be understood as one of the key components of religiosity. And the communal involvement itself may be broken down into 4 dimensions. You may talk of content, frequency, intensity, centrality, and so on. The contents of one's communal involvement may vary from person to person or from one religious organization to the next. On the whole, Vambit's 4 dimensions for measuring the above 6 components of religion are content, which refers to the elements of one religious repertoire. Number 2, frequency, which refers to the amount of involvement of a person in religious behaviors and practices. And 3, intensity, which refers to the degree of determination or consistency in relation to one's position to one's religion. And the last one is centrality, which refers to the importance that a person attributes to religious tenets, rituals, and sentiments. So you can hear Vambit takes us far. It takes us in a broad direction, where he theorized that each of the 6 components could be measured along the 4 dimensions. That is, for example, ritual is measured by ritual content, ritual frequency, ritual intensity, and ritual centrality. The next is to look at the distinguishing marks of religion. Very quickly, the first distinguishing marks of religion is belief in supernatural beings. And of course, when I can say a sentence or two and say belief in the supernatural, especially in gods, is one of the most obvious characteristics of religion. It is so common, in fact, that some people mistake mere theism for religion itself. Yet that is incorrect. Theism can occur outside of religion, and some religions are atheistic. Despite this, supernatural beliefs are a common and fundamental aspect to most religions, while the existence of supernatural beings is almost never stipulated in non-religious belief systems. Number 2, the second distinguishing mark of religion is sacred versus profane objects, places, and times. Now, distinguishing between the sacred and the profane is common and important enough in religions that some scholars of religion, notably Mikia Ariande, have argued that This distinction should be considered the defining characteristic of religion. The creation of such a distinction can help direct believers to focus on transcendental values and supernatural but hidden aspect of the world around us. Now, sacred times, places, and objects remind us that there is more to life than what we see. The third distinguishing mark of religion is ritual acts focused on sacred objects, places, and times. Now, of course, merely noting the existence of the sacred usually isn't sufficient. If a religion emphasizes the sacred, then it will also emphasize ritual acts involving the sacred. Special actions must occur at sacred times, in sacred places, and or with sacred objects. These rituals serve to unite members of the current religious community, not just with each other, but also with their ancestors and their descendants. So rituals can be important components on any social group, religious or otherwise. The fourth distinguishing mark of religion is moral code with supernatural origins. Now, let me say that few religions don't include some sort of basic moral code in their teachings. Because religions are typically social and communal in nature, it's only to be expected that they also have directions about how people should behave and treat each other, not to mention outsiders. Now, justification for this particular moral code, rather than any other, usually comes in the form of the code's supernatural origins. For example, from gods which created both the code and humanity. Now, the fifth distinguishing marks of religion is characteristically religious feelings. So, characteristically religious feeling is another distinguishing marks of religion. So, in religion, there are feelings. There are religious feelings. Awe, that is a sense of mystery, a sense of guilt, and adoration are religious feelings which tend to be aroused in religious believers when they come in the presence of sacred objects, in sacred places, and during the practice of sacred rituals. Usually, these feelings are connected with the supernatural. For example, it may be thought that the feelings are evidence of the immediate presence of the divine beings like rituals. Like rituals, this attribute often occurs outside religion. Now, the sixth distinguishing mark of religion is prayer and other forms of communication. Because the supernatural is so often personalized in religions, it only makes sense that believers would seek interaction and communication. Many rituals, like sacrifices, are one type of attempted interaction. Prayer is a very common form of attempted communication, which might occur quietly with a single person, roundly and publicly, or in the context of a group believer. There is no single type of prayer or single type of effort to communicate, just a common desire to reach out. Now, the seventh distinguishing mark of religion is a worldview and organization of one's life based on the worldview. Now, I should say it is normal for religions to present believers with a general picture of the world as a whole and the place of the individual therein. For example, whether the world exists for them, of it they are bit prayer in someone else's drama. This picture will usually include We usually include some details of an overall purpose or point of the world and an indication of how the individual fits into that as well. For example, are they supposed to serve the gods, or do the gods exist to help them along? The last distinguishing mark of religion and the eighth one is a social group bound together by the above. Now, religions are so commonly organized socially that religious beliefs without a social have acquired uh, their own label, which is spirituality. Now, religious believers often join together with like-minded adherents to worship or even live together. Religious beliefs are typically transmitted not just by family, but by an entire community of believers. Religious believers sometimes associate with each other to the exclusion of non-adherents and may place this community at the center of their lives. Thank you.